IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine. What would you be doing today had it not been for your day-to-day responsibilities of meeting work deadlines and making sure your family is financially secured? Would you have been a footballer, kicking the ball around on those grassy grounds? Or would you have been an artist, sitting near a window overlooking the hills as you paint away? Maybe you crave to be a photographer. But here you are, framing a picture of the life you wish you had. But this can still be a reality. करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI Life अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए. To know more about our insurance plans with wealth creation, log on to www.sbilife.co.in. IRDAI registration number 111.
Here's your smart fact of the day. For those who don't know him, Andrew Shulz is an American stand-up comedian, actor, television producer, and podcaster. He is most famously known for his Netflix special, Shulz Saves America, which premiered on December 17, 2020. This was the culmination of him doing work on both Instagram and on YouTube, which resulted in him getting this 4-part Netflix special. Andrew Shulz has kind of figured out a different path to success, bucking the trend of how normal people function in his space. And there are many lessons that you can take from the way in which he thinks about his work, his business, and his life. Here are 3 lessons from Andrew Shulz, and I just wanted to complete the trilogy, which started off with Kanye West, and then we went on to Mr. Beast. So welcome to Smarter with Sid's episode, in which we look at 3 lessons from Andrew Shulz. Let's go. So first, let's set a bit of a context. How does a stand-up comedian become famous? I know I have done an episode on stand-up comedians first, but let's just understand the process a little bit, shall we? Or rather, the normal route towards success. Well, you start off by doing a lot of practice, because this is the only, thing that you have to do. Practice in front of live audiences. And once you practice in front of live audiences, that's when you start cutting your teeth, as they say. Move from gig to gig, get a little famous, get better at your work, and get well known through the circuit. It'll help you get bigger and bigger gigs. And then you end up finally going on, say, a Netflix or something like that, or have a sold out arena and, make a killing. You may also go into, acting or any related television programs if that's what you want to do. So that's your context, really. But Andrew Shulz, he kind of completely challenged that. And I wanted to know how he did it. So I watched Colin and Sameer's show. I don't know if you've seen this. This is a great YouTube channel that actually focuses on the creator economy. So it's a bit of a goldmine for somebody like me who looks into these kind of subjects of digital content creation. Colin and Sameer's show is when they dissect and understand what makes, say, for example, Lily Singh work and stuff like that. So do check it out. And trust me, I'm not getting any money to promote Colin and Sameer's show. They're genuinely good show hosts, and it's a worthwhile watch, especially if you're trying to look into what is the future of marketing or the rest of it in the creator economy. But let's kind of go back to Andrew Shulz, shall we? So this guy's funny, okay? So let's understand that. He's obviously got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of skill. I don't necessarily like all of his work, nor do I'm a little underwhelmed with his overt snarkiness at times. And sometimes he's a little too American and a little too white for me, to be honest, in terms of his fun and in terms of his jokes. But it's okay. I mean, it's all right. Sometimes he does make me laugh. He's really clever and he's fantastic with his crowd work, which means essentially when you're standing in front of a crowd and you're, kind of doing the repartee, he thinks on his feet, he quips a lot, and he really engages things. What I also appreciate about him is that he does not, make fun of, let's say, black people in a room of white people. It's always a multiracial crowd that that follows Andrew Shulz, and he's somebody who kind of makes fun of everyone equally. He's kind of inclusive in his taunting of people, and I think that kind of works for him. So I've kind of given you a glimpse of the way in which he approaches his comedy, and he was doing the usual thing. He was actually kind of, doing the typical gig route that I was talking about when I was setting the context. But then what he did was that he understood that he did not really like the end results of that. He did not want to become an actor because he kind of said that being an actor is kind of not really something that stoked his interest, and he was actually bad at it. He was good at stand up comedy. So he just made a shift and went onto YouTube and built a YouTube empire out of first putting his clips on YouTube. So that's lesson number one. What you do is you have to figure out that if you are making a living, then it might be a good idea to actually explore the future a little bit, something that is not immediately in your radar, but kind of ensure that you give a different business model a chance. And Schultz succeeded, and how? His YouTube specials, I think they're called 441 and 551 or something like that. Forgive me if I'm wrong about the names, but he was fantastic in those, and he just kind of catapulted to fame. Now, this was a really, really interesting way of looking at a business model. Obviously, he had to change a lot about his style. You couldn't do crowd work. You couldn't, wait and pause for laughs, or wait and pause for the joke to hit, or you can't have manufactured laughs like maybe a Seth Meyers does when he's doing a television-y kind of show. So lesson number one, learn how to kind of understand how much do you need to make in your life, make a living, but then keep an eye out on the future and explore new things with the talent that exists within you. Here's lesson number two. Lesson number two is, the best marketing is your own content. So this is really an interesting one. You don't have to literally do your marketing as a separate thing, especially if you're a content creator. Make clips of your content and make sure that the material that you have as a content creator, as somebody who is out there, and by the way, this applies to all of us. This applies to personal brands. This applies to, actual brands like products and services and stuff like that. Sometimes the best marketing is not about advertising what you have, but it's all about making what content that naturally comes your way into a story, into a narrative, into an arc, and that is the best marketing tool. So use your marketing tool as a surprise weapon by making it your content. You know who else does that? Netflix does that. I've spoken about this in an earlier episode. Do take a look at it. It is how Netflix actually uses some of its content and puts Netflix content out on YouTube, which is actually a competitive platform. So you can do it for, content brands as well. You can do it for personal brands. You can identify some quotes that have made you famous in the past, that have gotten a lot of likes, etc., and make a carousel out of it. And I've seen a lot of creators on LinkedIn do this, and I've seen so many Instagrammers do versions of the same, rehash some of the content and the rest of it. If you want to market yourself well, your content is probably your best bet. So that, I guess, is lesson number two, with another final lesson that is going to come your way because of the way in which he's living his life. So he's obviously changed his business model, right? He is always exploring for a business model, by the way. Even during the Colin and Samir show, he was trying to figure out how best he can use Patreon, which is the paywall that you have wherein people pay you in order to receive, exclusive content from you, which you can't get on YouTube. And he was wondering whether you could make some Patreon members investors in his content. So when he does go big on some, bigger paymaster like a Netflix or anywhere else, even the investors, the patrons, could potentially win out. So he's always on the lookout. But the lesson that I wanted to speak was not this. Yes, you should always look out for a business model for the future. But what he did was a very interesting thing. And the best way in which it can be described is through his own words. He was making fun of a Sikh gentleman, with the turban and all of that kind of Sikh. And the funny thing is that he was making fun of it, and it got really popular in the Sikh community. So obviously it was taken well. It was not taken as an affront to that community. And then he realized that if he can make fun jokes which are funny and not offensive, but it's actually shared by certain communities, shared to certain communities, the gatekeepers just suddenly disappear. The gatekeepers which are there in traditional media, the people who reject content even before it reaches the right kind of ears to make your show, just completely disappeared when he actually started targeting communities which were niche communities. Okay, he calls it niche because he's American. Niche communities, and essentially start creating some kind of content for them which became viral. Now obviously he does say that it was not a practice strategy and it was not a hack and stuff like that, but it was more to do with serendipity. And then he understood that, wow, this is another way in which I can target communities, and that is how newer people can find me. And I think that that's a great hack. So that's lesson number 3. Okay, make it meaningful to communities rather than try and make generic content meant for a generic audience which never exists. Well, I hope you like these 3 lessons from Andrew Shulz. If you like this episode and this podcast, do like and do subscribe to this Smarter with Sid that I've got going for you. We've got so many episodes already, so do take a look at the earlier ones too. And hey, if you like episodes and podcasts like these, there's so much more on IVM Podcasts, so do give them a whirl, do check them out. And if you like me, I'm the Traveling Professor. Do connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I will be there with you. Happy to connect. See ya.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus and Silvery are joined by Naveen Narona and Sriram Padmanabhan. Tune in to catch them talking about Elon Musk's challenge to Vladimir Putin for a one-on-one battle to end the Russia-Ukraine war. We have a brand new show on the network, Ek Chuski Finance, or a Sip of Finance, or Ek Se Financha. Why does it have so many different names? Because it's a very ambitious project that we're launching at IVM Podcasts, 8 different languages. This is a really special one. It's a podcast that takes into account a female-first perspective of finance and how to get the most out of your money. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to Malini Agarwal, founder and creative director of Miss Malini Entertainment. Their conversation takes us through the journey of establishing Miss Malini, how it began as a blog and eventually became an empire. On the Habit Coach podcast, Ashton is in conversation with Roberta Hughes, founder and lead instructor, Peaceful Living, where they discuss how to add self-care into our daily routines. On Ikaduka Economy, Abhinav talks about how the war between Ukraine and Russia will impact India and the world's middle class. On Pulia Bazi, the hosts talk about the concept of one nation, one election. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any platform that you might be listening to us. You can also check us out on YouTube. We have a webpage, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where a list of all our channels are. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Bank of Baroda, India Water Portal, and Max Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.